Heart Academy, the Edison Institute, Physica Energetics, and Centennial College as well. She also had the honor to participate in 3 mentorship programs studying the philosophies and teachings of Dr. Bernard Jensen, Dr. Robert Marshall, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and she completed certification courses in clinical iridology, base allergy therapy, live blood cell microscopy, metabolic balance, QRA, holistic cancer practitioner certification, and also holds certifications in biotherapeutic drainage. And all of these add to Jennifer's clinical modalities that she offers in her practice. Jennifer's accomplishments includes she runs a very busy and successful practice in the Pickering area. She is also IHN's trade show manager for the Ontario events and one of our student clinic advisors and part of our faculty where she teaches Symptomatology Part 1, Nutrition Through the Lifespan, and Nutrition and Health, the Fundamentals. Let's welcome Jennifer Papaconstantinou. You're on mute. Unmute.
Now can you hear me?
Okay, good.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. And I'm just going to, before I get started on my topic of eczema, I'm just going to share a little bit about my experience with IHN. Prior to becoming a nutritionist through IHN, I am a mother of 4. So I was at home, I was running a home daycare business, and I was raising my children. It was through my own children's health issues, more specifically my oldest daughter, who's now 26. But when she was very young, she started developing life-threatening asthma, eczema from head to toe. She had immune deficiencies. She was actually developed pertussis, unfortunately, from an adverse reaction to a vaccine, and it was quite a journey. So that journey of natural health actually is what motivated me and brought me to IHN. So I did study through the part-time evening program. I did the program over 2 years. I did not stop working, and I was able to still raise my family, and so fortunate to be able to become a certified holistic nutritionist at IHN. So that's a little bit about me and my journey. And I have to say the program at IHN was life-altering, so motivational and so changing, that you know, I haven't stopped. And to be honest, and Elizabeth will attest to this, when I set foot in there for an open house in 2006, and I enrolled into the part-time evening program, I've actually never left. So you know, I've always worked for IHN, and it was just a really a place that I just was so passionate about and that I wanted to be at. So I have been teaching there for this is my 11th year now. I've taught thousands of students, you know, as some of our other instructors that are a little bit more seasoned. And, you know, I'm just so happy to be here and sharing this knowledge with you here today. So without further ado, I think we can just jump right into the slideshow. In terms of questions, as panelists, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. At the end of the hour-long presentation at 12:30, I will spend a bit of time and answer questions for you. You know, I'm also going to provide you with my contact information to follow up if you want you know, a copy of my slideshow, or, you know, we can communicate by email if there's any questions. I know this issue is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. You know, your skin is what you present to the world. And, you know, through my own journey, I've learned some really key strategies and of course, with what I learned at IHN on how to help that. So I'm just going to open my slideshow now. Whoops. How do I go back? Okay. So today I have the pleasure, so there's my name. I know it's long and distinguished. I married a man who's half Greek and half Scottish. My maiden name was worse because I'm part German. So I'm truly Canadian, let's just say. I am the founder of a clinical holistic health practice called Heal Naturally Holistic Health. And so the topic for today's talk is going to be nutritional considerations for eczema and any skin condition, actually. So I hope to share with you some really great tools that you can take away from here. This is also an excerpt from a few courses, actually. So namely, my course that I have been teaching for 11 years is called Symptomatology Part 1. It is clinical nutrition. It's how to work and take all of your theory and put it into practice. It's part 1 of a 2-part course. We have Symptomatology Part 2, where you actually have to practice and do live case studies. So this is some excerpts as to what you would learn in the classroom at IHN, just to motivate you a little bit. So taken from our anatomy course, this is a cross-section, obviously, of the skin. The skin is considered something called the integumentary system in the body. And that doesn't just include the skin, it also includes in other mammals, obviously scales, feathers, hooves, nails, and basically, what is it there for? Well, number one, it holds us together. So all our bones and tendons and ligaments and fascia and blood and all that stuff and all your organs are held into place by your skin. However, it's what protects us from the outside world. So it acts as a barrier and allowing, you know, certain substances into the body and protecting us basically from the outside world, you know, from bacteria and, you know, right now viruses. You know, it helps us stay hydrated and things like that. So we're just going to talk briefly about the different layers of the skin. So the skin has a very unique chemical composition. So this is, let's just say, the chemistry of man, as Dr. Bernard Jensen would call it. I'm just going to put my headphones in just in case there might be some background noise coming in. There's 3 main layers of the skin, and as you could see there, it's also featured in the cross section. The epidermis is the outer layer. This is what we present to the outside world. And the chemical composition of the epidermis is primarily a protein called keratin. There are also, very interestingly, immune cells in the epidermal layer of the skin, and they are called cells of Langerhans. What these cells do is they are designed to alert the body and to basically offer immunity and to protect us from the outside world. So, you know, bacteria, fungus, you know, things that we are exposed to on a day-to-day basis, this protective layer of the skin and this skin immunity are basically what, you know, are very important. We also, this is where we produce melanin. So if you go outside on a day like today, I don't know where you are in the world, we're virtual. So I could be talking to students from all over, but here in Southern Ontario, where we're located, it's nice and beautiful and sunny. And if you go out today and the sun hits your skin, you're going to start to make melanin, and you're either going to get a burn or a tan. Okay. And then there's the middle layer of the skin. This is called the dermis. It is primarily composed of collagen and elastin.
So these are necessary for strength. Also, this is where the sweat glands are located, obviously, so those help us regulate temperature, blood vessels. There's a lot of blood vessels here. So this helps us, you know, again, with temperature regulation, thermal regulation, and of course, a lot of nerve fibers are in there. So this helps us with the sensation of touch, the sensation of pain, and things like that. And then there's the very bottom layer. So that's the inner layer. That is the inside layer. It's called the subcutaneous or the hypodermal layer. And this is basically a layer of fat for insulation and protection. So when we look at the skin, we have to consider that there are multiple factors and multiple layers of, you know, not just nerves, but immunity and nutrition and chemicals that we need on a daily basis, okay? And of course, our skin reproduces new cells every minute of every day. And, you know, the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism. So, you know, if you cut your skin, you're never thinking to yourself, wow, I think I'm just gonna have this cut for the rest of my life, okay? We cut our skin and we say, oh, that hurt. You know, that's going to bother me for a couple days. Maybe I need a Band-Aid. I'm going to make sure I clean it. And then, of course, your skin knits back together. So you're going to see when people have chronic skin conditions, this ability of the skin can become impaired. And nutrition has obviously a lot to do with that. So when we look at the chemical composition of the skin now in terms of minerals, okay, so you saw that there's like proteins like keratin, there's a fatty layer, okay, but there's also a mineral composition of the skin or an elemental composition. So this includes carbon, so primarily most things in the world are made up of carbon, a bit of nitrogen as well, hydrogen and oxygen. And then we have other minerals in smaller amounts, such as phosphorus, iodine, iron, sorry, I should have put a comma there, sodium, magnesium, sulfur, calcium, chlorine, and then trace elements, apologize for that, I put iron twice, but iodine as well, okay? So we're going to discuss how nutrition can really help with skin-related issues. Now, I'd like to introduce you to another kind of idea related to the skin from a holistic perspective, because we're always looking at any condition in the body, any syndrome, any symptom, or any disease as a whole body issue, okay? And that is what holistic health and holistic nutrition is all about. So we are looking at the body, the whole picture. So there is a saying, as above, so below, okay? And again, your skin is what you present to the world. It is our body's largest organ. And when we think of the skin, you have to think that I call it, when I'm teaching, I call it something called a deflection. Meaning that just because there's an issue showing up somewhere in the body, and in this case, we are talking about skin-related issues like eczema and psoriasis and dermatitis and hives and rashes and things like that, doesn't necessarily mean that it has absolutely anything to do with the skin. It just shows up on the skin, okay? So, modern medicine or westernized medicine or conventional medicine or whatever it is that you call it from where you live, it's based on an illness model, which by the time you have symptoms, very often you've seen multiple doctors, probably even a few specialists at this point. And, you know, your family doctor, after, you know, offering some strategies such as cortisone or some medicated creams, which generally are ineffective in the long term. They may help up front and they may reduce the appearance initially of the skin issue. it is an illness model. So it is focused on the branches and the leaves of the tree, which means it's focused on the symptoms, it's focused on what you see on the outside, and it's not looking at the whole picture. In holistic health, we like to use more of a proactive or a wellness model, where not only do we focus on the branches and the leaves of the tree, but we focus on the entire tree, including the trunk and the roots. So this is where modern medicine very often falls short for, again, long-term chronic illness. It is because, so areas, people with skin conditions, what is the progress, okay? So eczema shows up, or it may be a baby, they may have been born with it, whatever the case may be, they go to the doctor who offers them, some type of prescription medication, might be an immune blocker, it may be a cortisone cream, usually that's to start, maybe something stronger if it progresses into like a prednisone or, so on and so forth. And, then the client very often long-term does not see the results that they're looking for. So they may have short-term results, the eczema may appear to look better. If the doctor's strategies don't work, then they send them to a dermatologist, okay, or a specialist. Now, what does a dermatologist look at? A dermatologist is a skin specialist, but he only looks at the skin. I have not yet to see a client. I opened my practice in 2007. And so I have been in practice, this year is my 13th year. And I have yet to see a specialist look at the whole picture and start asking these people, what are you eating? What is your diet like? Okay. What allergens are you exposed to? What toxic chemicals are you possibly putting on your skin? Are you exposed to on a daily basis, either in your home or at work? Okay, I have yet to see a specialist ask those things, very unfortunately. And again, listen, eczema is an inflammatory condition, okay? So everything that you put in your mouth, and we are going to talk about diet, is either anti-inflammatory or it's pro-inflammatory. There is no in between. And so our dietary choices have a lot to do with this. But I would also like to encourage you to think a little bit past just diet and nutrition, and again, look at the whole picture when it comes to any disease, not just eczema, psoriasis, skin conditions like we're talking about today, okay? And this is the wellness model. So I always ask 4 things when I am looking at a client and I'm looking at a disease process and I'm looking at the skin or whatever the case may be, what's going on. I look at what is the deficiency, number 1, because nothing is going to replace a nutrient, okay? And there are 9 essential amino acids, there are 2 essential fatty acids, and there are essential vitamins, water soluble and fat soluble, and there are essential minerals. When we're working with nutrition and you hear or see the word essential, that means that the human body cannot make it. We must get it from food. And so I always ask, what is the deficiency? What is the toxin? What is the infection? And then what is the deflection? Meaning, where does it show up? And is it actually a problem with that area? Or is it something much deeper, like you see here, as above, so below, okay? So this is kind of something that I'd like to introduce you to very early on in this talk so that you get a good idea as to where I'm going to be going with this, okay? So when we picture your body, and I'm talking about as above, so below, I want you to picture the body like a rain barrel, okay? And this is called the barrel effect. So we teach this in multiple courses at IHN. It is introduced in fundamentals. We look at it again in preventative. and in lifespan. So what is the barrel effect? So picture the body like a rain barrel, okay? And some people are born, unfortunately, with very full barrels. These could be even babies. So consider what these children have already previously been exposed to in utero that was not even their fault. So was the mom and dad maybe smokers? Did they drink alcohol? What was their diet like? Was it anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory? What was their chemical burden? Okay, where do they live? What does the air that they breathe look like? Oh my gosh, this could go on and on and on. Okay, were they vaccinated? You know, did they eat right? You know, and this goes on and on and on. There's a lot of dental stuff that could be quite toxic to the human body. Is their mouth filled with silver amalgams? Are there bridges, crowns? Maybe there's just a bad dental history here, and, you know, possibly underlying infections in the mom or the dad, okay? So children can be born with a full barrel, unfortunately, but the longer you live on planet Earth, the fuller your barrel gets as well, okay? Because we are exposed to pollution from the air that we breathe, and you do put gas in your car. And right now with, you know, the situation that we're in a pandemic, everywhere you go, they're spraying. You don't even know what they're spraying on the grocery carts. I've watched them do it on the shelves, on the produce, and we don't even know prior to that, you know. We're talking about genetically modified foods. We're talking about pesticide, herbicide, larvicide, moldicide-laden foods if you choose not to eat organic or grow your own or shop at a farmer's market or, you know, things like that. So, you know, your barrel, as you accumulate toxicity, and this doesn't just have to be toxicity from the outside world. We have a course at IHN called Psychology of Disease. And it's basically a course on how your psychology becomes your biology. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in terms of eczema and skin conditions, what the emotional component is that is sitting behind this as well. So this could be an emotional barrel, okay, for some people. Stress barrel. So you don't always just look at heavy metal exposure, toxic exposure, dental exposure, you know, pollution exposure, what they're putting on their skin, what they're cleaning their house with, what they're washing their clothes with. But we also, again, looking at the whole picture, okay? So how much can your barrel hold? Well, this is different for each person. So I can't answer that for you. Some people are born with really big empty barrels, which is great. They can handle a lot. And in Ayurveda, this would be somebody who would be considered a kapha constitution. They're usually born with really big barrels, okay? Whereas Vata in Ayurveda is born with usually what's considered a smaller barrel, which means they can handle less of a load, let's just say, before symptoms appear. So the longer you live on this earth, and depending on what your parents were doing and what they were exposed to, is going to determine your barrel. Now, some people's barrel gets full, and then they go on a detoxification protocol, they go on a cleansing protocol, they go for, you know, maybe colonics, maybe they're doing some juicing, maybe they're taking a liver formula and liver cleanse, et cetera, and they can actually drain their barrel and they can lessen the load. And then their symptoms start to come down as well, okay? So introducing you to as above, so below, and the barrel effect right off the hop should get your mind thinking, if you are indeed a sufferer of a skin-related issue, what's going on under this iceberg, okay? What's going on that you can't see? Is your barrel full? Is it empty? Is it half full? Okay, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we go about working with this barrel effect? So there is something that I like to call, I learned this actually from Dr. Robert Marshall. It is called 8 drivers of disease, okay? So these are 8 things that you are going to see that actually contribute and cause disease and cause the barrel to be full. So number one, first and foremost, is lack of sleep. So most people are not getting to bed on time. They are not following the laws of nature, okay, which says that when the sun goes down, it is time to go to bed. We have artificial lighting. Now we have, you know, Wi-Fi and computers and phones and tablets and all of this stuff that allows us to stay awake much longer than humanly we need to be. And this will actually control an autonomic response called sympathetic versus parasympathetic. Some people can be sympathetic dominant, and some people can actually be parasympathetic dominant. The work of Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez of the Gonzalez Protocol, okay, a very, very famous cancer protocol. He actually has recommended specific diets if a client is either, or for him it's patient because he is a doctor, sympathetic versus parasympathetic. So as an example, people who are sympathetic dominant do more on very high plant-based, lots of greens, vegetarian or vegan type diets, okay, with some fat in there because fat is considered neutral. Whereas somebody who would be parasympathetic dominant needs more grounding. So they need a more, maybe like a paleo type of diet, okay, a carnivorous type of diet where they are consuming more hearty meals, okay? Of course, what can also happen in lack of sleep is that we will keep cortisol, which is made by our adrenal glands. And this is something that you're going to learn in anatomy and Symp 1 and, you know, a few other courses about adrenal function. We keep cortisol high, and that can cause something called adrenal burnout. And cortisol actually is a very potent and important natural anti-inflammatory made by the body. Okay, so think about this. You're getting skin issues. You go to the doctor. What is his first strategy? Is he gives you a cortisone-based cream, okay, or prednisone, which is a corticosteroid. So why would our body not be producing or overproducing too much cortisol? It has a lot to do with sleep, shift work. Some people are designed to work shift work. Some people's bodies were not. Again, you know, it's living against nature and that natural circadian rhythm created by the light and the darkness. And anytime you live against nature, you are going to end up developing some type of problem. So, secondly, emotions. So I have made reference to our course called Psychology of Disease, okay, where the issues are in the tissues. So the emotions that are associated with eczema and dermatitis, psoriasis, things like that are controlled. Okay, so these people maybe feel a lack of control in their life, or there is somebody in their life who is, they are feeling controlled by. They may feel judged. And again, think about this issue is they're feeling judged, and skin is what you present to the outside world. Okay, so again, it's judgment being passed. Also, there's an underlying theme of manipulation. So again, controlling and manipulation, and it may be something that they're aware of and you can, you know, they can pinpoint right away. And it may be something that they are completely unaware of and it's happening, you know, perhaps maybe from a distant relative or somebody that's close to them. It doesn't matter. So these are the emotions, and you have to think, again, so to speak, you know, so we know that, and this is the work of Louise Hay, who was a metaphysical genius, let's just say, and she developed a book, How to Heal Your Life and How to Heal Your Body. And she, you know, she created Hay House, which, you know, has amazing books on the metaphysical. So we know kidneys are sadness, lungs are fear, or lungs are sadness, kidneys are fear. Gallbladder is the seat of frustration, liver is the seat of anger, so on and so forth. So every disease, every condition in the human body has an emotional underlying theme, okay? And so what I want you to think about is who is under their skin and irritating them. Okay, so that's kind of what some of the things that you want to look at from an emotional standpoint. Now we go to digestion. This is a huge driver of disease. So there could be an underlying issue with dysbiosis, which is a term that describes the balance of good to bad bacteria. Okay, so we learn a lot about the gut, specifically in my course that I teach, Symptomatology Part 1. We learn strategies for gut health and gut healing, and both diet, we incorporate herbal medicine, we incorporate nutrition. So dysbiosis is a term that describes the ratio of the good to bad bacteria. In a healthy person, that ratio should be 85 good guys to 15 bad guys, because we all need a little bit of opposition in our life, okay? Otherwise, life is just full of rainbows and unicorns. We can't have that. So, and of course, these bad guys, I don't want to call them bad because they are commensal. They are supposed to be living in our intestinal tract and on our skin and in our hair and, you know, in our eyebrows and wherever else they live, everywhere in our underarms, but we don't want them to get out of control, okay? And then there's an underlying, possibly a leaky gut issue, which is called intestinal permeability. Eczema has a lot to do with considered an autoimmune disease. And so there's a lot of work that we have to do with balancing the immune system. And the immune system doesn't just compose of, you know, the thymus gland and the spleen and the lymphatic system, but 80% of our immune system is located in the intestinal tract in a form called Peyer's patches, which are little like gardens of lymphatic tissue or lymph tissue that we actually have intestinal immunity. And it is this intestinal immunity that allows for each food that we choose to either build immunity or tear it down, okay? Now, of course, our food choices. So here's what we find. And of course, you know, our school is all about nutrition and holistic health. So our food is not food, is not food, is not the food anymore. So, you know, our food is genetically modified. Our food maybe look like food, but it's not actually food. It is depleted of nutrients. It is possibly inflammatory. There's a chemical burden on our food now. Our soil has been depleted because of monoculture and agribusiness, and not following the land, and again, following the laws of nature like farmers used to farm, you know, 100 years ago, where they actually used to spend time to replenish the soil before they would grow a crop in there again, and they would let the soil rest and regenerate and replenish. Okay, basically they would let it sleep. And, you know, all of the little mycorrhiza and the bacteria would break down these wonderful things and remineralize the soil and put some vitamins in there and humic acid and fulvic acid and things like that. So our food is definitely something that we have to, that contribute to disease. Now consider infection. So I have mentioned some of these already before. Viral infections have been linked to chronic skin conditions. Possibly dental infections. We learn about the detrimental of root canals, and there's a really good book that you can look up and resource called The Root Canal Cover-Up, which talks about root canals basically impairing immunity by 60%. And again, we are dealing with a possible underlying autoimmune condition here. So this could be dental issues that contribute to this, bacterial, parasitic associated, not just with travel, but, you know, all just going to cottaging and lakes and pets, being around pets and animals, and food that you maybe have eaten at a restaurant that wasn't prepared properly or cooked properly or washed properly. It doesn't have to be an animal-based food to get a parasite from it. Lettuce is a huge issue if it's not washed properly, so make sure you're taking care of your food. Mycoplasma, biofilm, these are all infectious agents, nanobacteria, all these things that we could be exposed to, amoebas, And, you know, this list can go on and on and on, but we possibly want to look at infectious agents. Now, we can look at toxicity. So this is stuff that possibly coming from the outside, chemical irritants, heavy metals. What does this person do as a job? You know, what are they exposed to on a daily basis, possibly? Xenobiotic exposure, and just looking at their chemical exposure. Like I said, what are they putting in their, what's in their shower? Okay, what are they putting on their bodies, on their hair? What's in their makeup? If they're, you know, laundry detergent, things like that, what are you cleaning your house with? And this goes on and on and on. So you're looking for their chemical burden here. Something called interference fields. Again, this is something I learned from studying with Dr. Robert Marshall in the US. Unfortunately, he passed away, I think it was about 3 years ago now, but you know, it's, there's thousands of practitioners that studied his teachings, and we're just so happy to carry on his legacy. So all of this information that I'm teaching you here, you know, I stand on the shoulders of pioneers and giants like Dr. Bernard Jensen and Dr. Abram Hoffer and Linus Pauling, and the work of, you know, some of these really amazing individuals. I'm just here to share it. So interference fields are any scars, traumas, tattoos, piercings, surgeries, wounds, concussions, broken bones. And this doesn't have to be something that's present. It can be a past issue. What we have found is that looking at the body and the meridian system from a Chinese perspective is that these interference fields, any scar or trauma to the body, and it could be something that is notable, or it could be something that is past and healed that did not leave a mark, actually can cause distortion and affect an organ system or an organ function. And I'll show you why this is relevant in eczema in, I think, the next slide, or I have a slide coming up about this. So picture, for those of you who have pet bunnies like to chew things, so do some puppies. Picture if your bunny or your puppy or your cat gets a hold of like a wire to your television set. And you kind of catch them in the act, but the damage is already done. So they put a couple bite marks in there and chew marks in there. What happens to your screen now, okay, on your television is going to be, there's distortion. So you may see, okay, picture that happening to an organ or an organ system in the body when there is any type of trauma externally or internally to the human body. And mainstream neurology actually knows about these interference fields. And I think, was it 3 or 4 years ago now, the World Neurology Conference was actually in Ottawa, Ontario. And I wish I had fake ID that I had like a fly or be a fly on the wall there, because that conference was actually about interference fields and they don't know what to do about it. Okay. So there are things from a holistic standpoint that we can do to basically reestablish a connection from organ systems that have been disassociated from one another based on past traumas. So as an example, okay, I'm going to give you a classic example of this. A female who has either a hysterectomy or a cesarean section, and they have that cut right across, you know, their lower abdomen. That cut severs 6 meridian systems in the Chinese meridian chart. And, you know, yes, that cut and that wound heals, but there was trauma to that area. And typically what you see is 10, 15, 20 years down the road, a female who has a cesarean section or a hysterectomy with that, you know, horizontal incision will suffer from sciatica, possibly edema, water pooling in the legs, swelling, knee problems, lower back pain. And this is all kind of a reflex or a deflection, where when they have knee problems, of course, everyone looks at the knee. What's wrong with your knees? And it's not a knee problem at all, okay? It is this system that can't function properly because this scar is sitting on top of there. And we know that there's a lot of keloid tissue and toxic tissue under some of these scars that can build up, okay? And then there's energetics. So again, going to psychology of disease, we're talking about the 7 chakras. We now know that there's 10 chakras. There's 3 above, okay, into the biofield that we know. There's something called cellular memory, where your cells, even from, generational traumas that your past family members have suffered from, our cells actually retain that genetic information and that emotional and spiritual information as well, okay? And there's imbalances in the biofield. So your biofield is basically like your aura. So these are called the 8 drivers of disease. So anytime you look at any disease process, it's not just a matter of saying, oh, this person has diabetes, here's the protocol for that. At IHN, you don't learn a cookie cutter approach, okay? You learn to assess each client individually, just like you would assess a fingerprint or a snowflake. Each one is individual, and what's going to work for one person will not work for another. And that's where we can get in a lot into trouble with nutrition. You know, obviously there's a baseline of where we need to start, but then what does this individual need? What is their health history? What does their past look like? It's called the slope of health. How did they get to where they are now? And that is the way the body is going to heal, okay? So is there this one size fits all approach? Absolutely not. So saying, so there's a reference here. I actually took this from a training I did with this Soroil. There is a saying is, this is called biochemical individuality, and where each person is going to need something different. So let's just say, walnuts are high in omega-6, and that's really good for the skin. So you tell someone with eczema, I heard walnuts are good, just eat a whop load of walnuts and take dairy out of your diet because I heard that dairy is very irritating. For one person, that actually may work beautifully. Okay, that recommendation. For another person, it may not work at all. And this is where we can get into trouble, where they say, well, I don't know, I don't know if this nutrition thing actually works because I took dairy out of my diet and I ate a lot of walnuts and it didn't work for me. And so you really have to find the pathway the person took to get to the diagnosis of eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, okay, chronic urticaria, whatever the skin issue is. And you're going to find that that's the pathway you have to take to go back, okay? So this is called the slope of health. And usually health-related issues are multifactorial, which means there's not one cause, okay? There are multiple causes. There are multiple biochemical imbalances in the body, as you saw, emotional, toxicity, spiritual, blah, 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 blah. And this could go on and on, of course, nutritional. And we are designed as holistic nutritionists to assess all of that, okay? So you want to look at what slope they took to get there, and that's how they're going to make their way back up to health. Okay, so when we look at the skin, I want you to picture, again, the body like a bucket or a barrel, okay? But the reason I have this slide here is we have in the body emunctories. And I want you to picture every time you hear the word emunctory, this is an exit. This is an exit from the body, okay? So the Webster's Dictionary, I have the definition there. It says an emunctory is an organ or part of the body, such as the kidneys, lungs, or skins, that functions in carrying off waste products out of the body. An emunctory is an exit. So when you look at the emunctories here, and I'm actually just going to get, I'm going to draw. So I'm just going to get my little stylus pen here. And I'm going to annotate. No, I'm going to draw. And it's not letting me draw. Can I draw? Oh, probably because my computer is not a touch screen. My other computer is a touch screen and this one's not. I'm trying to touch the screen. Okay, so here are the primary emunctories. So think about this, okay? Number one, 1. Oh, I can't get a pen because this is not my touch screen. So this is going to look a little bit funny. Sorry about this. So we breathe more than we do anything else. This is a great way that the body eliminates. So the lungs are called a primary emunctory. Okay. So you're breathing right now every second, in and out, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Second emunctory is called the kidneys. So hopefully, sorry about that, you pee more than you poop, okay? So you should be consuming 2 to 3 liters of filtered water every day, and you should be eliminating via the kidneys. Third one is the digestive tract, namely the bowel, okay? But the liver is also included in there, and the gallbladder, everything that all of those dump into the bowel. And the third way that you eliminate is by pooping, okay? And hopefully you don't poop more than you pee, and hopefully you don't do any of those 2 more than you breathe, okay? Otherwise, you've got other problems. And then the skin. So skin is number 4. So is skin the preferred method of eliminating? No, it is not. So when we talk about emunctories, by the time a problem shows up on the skin, what do we have an issue with here? We have an issue with possibly bowel. We have an issue with possibly kidney. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the Chinese believe that the skin is the 3rd kidney. So the Chinese in TCM philosophy, whenever they see a skin condition, they're thinking, what the heck's going on with the kidneys, okay? And possibly, and this is the reason why eczema and asthma go hand in hand, is now there is a possible lung-related issue as well. So whenever you see anything show up on the skin, and of course this doesn't mean a bug bite, because obviously that is external. This isn't a chemical burn because that's an external influence. This isn't a scratch or anything like that. But when you see inflammation and allergy show up on the skin, we are in our minds thinking, are there emunctories blocked underneath? Okay, what's going on with the lungs? What's going on with the kidneys? What's going on with the liver, with the gallbladder, and with the bowel? And then we look at, why is it showing up on the skin? So again, this contributes to this rain barrel effect, where if these organs have a problem or a blockage, or we're not breathing in clean air, consuming clean water, or we're not pooping every day, eventually the skin is going to show up with a problem, okay? And so this is an emunctory. So the skin is considered a primary emunctory, as well as the skin is considered a secondary emunctory. Okay, now secondary emunctories are also the musculoskeletal system. So whenever you see a problem now in tendons, ligaments, joints, bones, that will show up. It's going to be a much, much deeper issue, okay? Meaning there's blockages everywhere now. And then the mucous membranes, and then mental and emotional changes, okay? So when we talk about skin-related issues, again, is the skin a deflection of something that is happening much deeper inside the body that we need to work on, okay? And so in SIMP 1 and SIMP 2, you learn protocols for lung flush, you learn protocols for kidney cleansing and kidney support, you learn protocols for how to clean the gallbladder, how to clean the liver, when it is the right time to do so, making sure the bowel is always open, okay? And then you may see skin conditions start to be eliminated just from having this rain barrel effect and doing this type of cleansing and detoxification type of protocols, okay? Emotions are considered in there as well. Now, also, one of the primary emunctories, it's not on the slide, but I had made reference to it in a previous slide. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So, can the body eliminate when we're stressed? And the answer is hands down, absolutely not at all. So when we are in fight or flight response, when you are stressed, when you are thinking negative thoughts, when you are watching the news, okay, or reading the newspaper right now. Social media is very stressful right now, okay? And when you are doing all these things and you put your body in this fight or flight response where it feels it's in danger, it senses danger, saber-toothed tiger type of thing, what we're doing basically is we're shutting down. So when you're stressed, you don't breathe properly. You breathe actually very shallow. You don't deep breathe. When you're stressed, okay, resources go away from elimination. So a lot of people, when they're very stressed, they may get chronic diarrhea. They may get chronic constipation. You can swing either way, okay? A lot of people, when they're stressed, they don't drink enough water, they forget, they don't eat right, they stress eat, and you know, this goes on and on and on. So one of the main ways that our body eliminates and helps with this exit is by resting, relaxing, digesting, okay? So go in your backyard on the nice day and read a book in the sun, and go out in nature if you can, and you know, just relax, try to think positive thoughts. Okay, so now what to do about all of this stuff, okay? So where do we start from here, all right? So I am going to give you some strategies to, oops, my apologies. I just need to move this little picture right here. Okay, so detoxification strategies, where to begin. I've given you a lot of information right now, and I know your wheels are all turning. So number one, always ask yourself, what is the toxin? What is the deficiency? So we always start with diet, okay? So a general basis here, rules of thumb, start with eliminating gluten and dairy, okay? Those two things, very inflammatory. Now, when I say dairy, I'm talking about pasteurized, homogenized, modernized dairy. I am not talking about countries where you're allowed to have raw dairy from a natural cow that has not been processed, that has not been chemically or physically altered, okay? So I am talking about modernized dairy. So raw dairy can be actually very healing for some people and can actually fix their skin and help with their skin-related issues. Gluten, so there are proteins in gluten. It's called molecular mimicry. It is where there are proteins in food that actually mimic molecules in our own body and our own body's processes. And there are proteins in gluten that our body does not know how to break down and actually look like antibody or antigen complexes. So we want to eliminate gluten. Cheap fats. So be careful, especially with commercialized salad dressings and processed foods. So soybean, cottonseed, canola oils, vegetable oils, all of these types of oils are pro-inflammatory. They don't do the body justice. You saw that there's that fatty subcutaneous layer of the skin. So fat has a lot to do with the way our skin is regenerated and how healthy our skin is. Irritants such as alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, etc., things like that, genetically modified, non-organic type foods. So this is a good start, okay? Now, diet-wise, you want to do a higher fat diet, but it has to be good fats, okay? It has to be fats coming from avocados and nuts and seeds and coconut and fish. And what else is high in fat? Olives, all right? So all of these natural fats, as long as they're not processed and broken down and chemically altered, they are healthy for us. They are anti-inflammatory. They will build healthy skin. They will regulate the immune system. Very important. So we can do a high fat diet, namely like a ketotarian type of diet would be very good here. For some people that might not work. The AIP diet. So this is called autoimmune paleo. Now this is a very good gut healing protocol diet. So there are proponents of this diet that have actually eliminated their skin related issues using this. Now, as you saw, there are other considerations here. So sometimes diet alone is just not enough, okay? Food sensitivities, food allergies. In Lifespan, you have an entire course where, an entire session where you talk about strategies for food sensitivities and allergies, elimination diets, and how to determine what foods you may be sensitive to. So we offer strategies for that. And then, of course, just a general eat clean, whole food, plant-based, organic type diet is a good start, okay? Very helpful. Lifestyle, now sleep. So I've talked about that. Please go to bed on time. Lights out between 10 and 11 at the absolute latest. And if you have a job that keeps you up later than that and you have issues, you may need to consider a new career, okay? No smoking, relaxation and meditation to switch the body into parasympathetic mode, clean up your chemicals. So reduce your toxic burden, reduce your barrel load. So all your cleaning products, your personal care items, your makeup, your hairsprays, things like that, your laundry detergents, all of that, time to get that all cleaned up. Now, other detoxification strategies. So strategies for you. I'm just going to smile because they're taking a picture of me. Okay. So time to open the exits. So strategies to clean the kidneys. The best solution to pollution is dilution. Okay. That's one of my favorite sayings. I can't remember where I heard that, but the best solution to pollution is dilution. Drinking 2 to 3 liters of clean filtered water daily. Filtered is underlined because you have to filter your water. If you don't filter your water, you are the filter. So who has to do the work to get this stuff cleaned up? Okay, it's going to be your kidneys. Check pH. So we talk about a lot about alkalizing. The body should be in a slightly alkaline state. Every single chemical or biochemical process in the body and physiological process works better in a slightly alkaline state, except for the stomach, okay? The stomach needs an acidity, so that is the only beneficial acid that the human body makes is hydrochloric acid. But monitor your pH. We have strategies in SIMP2. You actually have to do a pH assignment that you must submit, and you have to check your pH and do a full analysis on yourself using something called the Lemon Challenge and litmus paper. So when you get to that, you're going to learn a lot about pH, and you actually have to do an assignment on yourself. So alkalizing with minerals, and you're going to notice that these minerals are actually also the same minerals that are necessary for skin health. If you go back to the slide on chemical composition. Some herbs in herbal medicine, you're going to learn things strategies for detoxification and support. Celery seeds, dandelion, watermelon, nettles, an herb called uva ursi, solidago, Collinsonia, Chuncapiedra, there's others, corn silk burdock, sheep sorrel. So these types of herbs are very helpful. Russet potato juice is one of the #1 kidney cleansers. It's not that great tasting, unfortunately. It's kind of vile, but it works wonders. And there's a mushroom extract called a white button mushroom extract called Agaricus blazei, which is actually really good for kidneys. Now in terms of bowels, how do we get the bowels moving? Whole food diet, 30 to 35 grams of fiber on average is the recommended intake for fiber, and clean water will help get the bowels moving. If somebody's having trouble, we can offer strategies such as enemas, even coffee enemas. So you learn how to do that. Of course, there's no demonstration, but we talk about it. We try not to keep it clean, right? Colonic, so you could go for a colon hydrotherapy. Those are definitely recommendations that we make. Putting some lubrication into the bowels, such as flax, chia, aloe can help with somebody like that. Herbal laxatives, only used for short term because they can create a dependency, but in the short interim, if somebody's exits are blocked and you need to open them up, these can be a really great strategy. So that can include Chinese rhubarb, yellow dock, Burdock is a good laxative as well. Aloe outer leaf, Cascara sagrada, senna tea, things like that. These are good bowel movers. In Triphala for an Ayurvedic compound. So there's lots of different ones. The berberine herbs move the bowels as well. So these are how to get those exits open. Okay. Now, how to support and get the liver and gallbladder moving. So number one, we could use B vitamins. Number one, metabolic vitamins, very good for the liver, and gallbladder, B6 specifically for the gallbladder. Methionine and taurine are amino acids. There's other ones as well, cysteine, but these ones namely are really good for liver detoxification. Taurine is good for bile in the gallbladder. Phosphatidylcholine is a phospholipid. It gets fat trapped in the liver and gallbladder out. So you could use choline as well. There's a whole list of herbs. I just put a few of the top ones here as not to overcomplicate this. Dandelion, artichoke, milk thistle, rosemary, turmeric, yellow dock, beetroot. You know, anything that's bitter really will actually stimulate liver and gallbladder, such as endive and arugula and, you know, things like that, bitter herbs. Reishi is very good. So this is like the king of the mushrooms. It is revered especially in Asia. It's considered the, you know, for the emperor. It is the mushroom of longevity, but it's very good for liver, gallbladder, mood-related, sleep, everything basically. Chunca piedra is known as the rock crusher. So if there are stones or sludge in there, it actually helps with that. Now, for the lungs love water. Hands down, first and foremost, they love water. So for the lungs, we could use something called Balcal skullcap, or it's called Baikal skullcap. Sometimes you may see it spelt with an I. Thyme, rosemary, eucalyptus, and essential oils as well. These don't just have to be the herbs, herbal extracts. English ivy, mullein, horehound, lobelia are really great. Some nutrition, N-acetylcysteine is an amino acid for upper respiratory. Really good right now if you know, you're worried about a viral infection. Beetroot powder, beetroot powder boosts nitric oxide, deep diaphragm breathing, and the Wim Hof method. So a lot of people are practicing the Wim Hof method. Generally it's good for anti-stress, immunity building, and very good for lungs. It's a form of breathing. It's kind of like a whole lifestyle. You know, there's sauning and cold dipping, cold showers, and things like that. So now going to the gut and the skin, there are probiotics that are required for intestinal immunity as well as skin immunity. Colostrum is a consideration, especially if it's a baby or it's an adult that has never been breastfed. Colostrum actually balances out the immune system, but it's also very helpful for reestablishing motility and intestinal immunity. Rabinogalactan is a type of fiber that balances out the immune system. It comes from something called the larch tree. There's aloe, there's L-glutamine. And then in class, we teach a strategy called the 5R strategy for gut health. We have a really great book by Elizabeth Lipsky called Digestive Wellness. It's kind of like a digestive Bible. Everyone should read that. It should be a textbook in high school, to be honest. And then there's skin probiotics. So there are over 200 identified bacteria on the skin. One of them is called Cutibacterium acnes. It's an important gatekeeper that influences sebum production, which is the oil production in our skin. There's another one called, it's a staph bacteria. It's called Staphylococcus epidermidis. So this is a bacteria that they have found that's a keystone for healthy skin and skin immunity. And then I am not even going to attempt the next one. It's worse than my last name. And this controls melanin and redness in the skin. So we can do, I'm going to give you one more slide. Key nutrients and nutritional strategies now for skin health. So I've given you this, and again, I offer all participants, if they want this slideshow, I'm happy to send it to you in a PDF format. If you want to email me, I'm going to give you my website and how to get in touch with me on the next slide. And I'm going to open the panel for Q&A. So there's vitamin A, and I've given you what all the nutrients do. Vitamin C for collagen, vitamin E for skin durability, hormone balance, and as an antioxidant. AO stands for antioxidant. The skin needs a lot of protection from outside influence, the sun, the UV, radiation exposure, you know, things like that. Vitamin D, very important for maintaining cholesterol levels in our skin, as well as an antioxidant. Zinc heals damaged skin, also balances testosterone and sebum production. Omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory, so is omega-6. Things like borage, evening primrose oil are really good for skin health. Sulfur, so MSM, methylsulfonylmethane, is a component of hair, skin, and nails. Very important for liver detox, but also an important component of the skin. Magnesium, if you see somebody who's red all the time, that's a magnesium deficiency. Of course, there's collagen, so bone broth. You know, there's people doing bulletproof coffees with collagen now, and collagen is like exploded. The only contraindication with collagen is if you're a chronic Lyme disease sufferer. Collagen is contraindicated because collagen will feed the Lyme spirochete, unfortunately. So do be careful on who you're recommending this to. Minerals for the skin. So we talked about the mineral composition. So basically calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, things like that are all very important for the skin. And there is a really great product that you can purchase, and it's a skin probiotic spray. It is called AO Mist. It is by a company called Mother Dirt. And it actually is a really great consideration for balancing the skins from the outside. So you want to take probiotics on the inside, but you can actually use a skin probiotic. So what time is it? It is now almost 12:30. So I just want to thank you all for coming and listening to me talk. I do wish you all the best on your journey at IHN. I know it's a huge decision, but it is worth every minute of it.